and welcome to Flightdeck Live, Alouettes Flightdeck podcast post-game show with myself, along with Cliffy D. Pine. How are you, sir?
Been better, but it's a weird thing. It's like just I guess the whole gamut of emotions after a game like this. You're happy, you're sad, you're mad, you're confused, you're looking back. You already you're starting to look back and you're wondering what happened. What did we just watch? What the absolute f did we just watch?
Yeah, that's a very good question. What did we actually just watch? Oh man, I never. There's so many things to unpack with this game, my friend. Um,
There really is, and
it's
yet and yet there's not. You know what I mean? Like there was so nothing worth talking about. But at the same time, we have to talk about it because this match really did happen. And it's funny. I was saying just before we went live that I kind of get how the gang at Piffles felt after that game in Ottawa. They went live, and that's something that they don't normally do, but they had to go live because they just had to talk about what they had just seen. And I get it. I get it. I mean, not the same circumstances by any stretch, but I totally get it.
Yeah, and as I correct the team here, first tie for the Alouettes since a game that you and I were at, Cliff. Uh, it was first tie since September 20th, 1998 at Hamilton. And I think,
Mhm.
it's funny. I think there was more controversy how that game ended, if I remember correctly, because at the time, I think Hamilton had shorter goalposts, they had shorter uprights. And I know there was obviously uh, there's no replay, et cetera, et cetera. Because I remember them specifically in that game. I know that was um, one of the controversies, I guess we could say, for that game. But again, you know, again, Al's moved to 10-2-1. It's funny to say they're win they're what is it? They're winning. How would you say this? They're not winless. Their road streak of they're
They're
unbeaten
still
on the road in 9. Here, that's it. That's it.
they're
That's it.
still
They're
unbeaten
unbeaten
on
on
the
the
road.
road in 9. Yep.
Yep.
Which, by the way, it does actually set up a pretty cool matchup next week. It really does. Uh, Ottawa's unbeaten at home. Montreal's unbeaten on the road. So
This is true.
I guess that's a
And
positive.
Ottawa too. Again, as I just said, Ottawa too is the proud owner of a tie game,
Mhm.
and that was at home. So yes, they are unbeaten at home, and Montreal is unbeaten on the road. Something's going to
Yeah.
give next week, Tim, unless we get another tie. But
Oh god, don't do that. No, it was yeah, just sending you the final stats, by the way.
here's
It
your final
was
stats. Both teams sucked.
it was there were so many brutal things about this game that I wish
Oh,
it was all the things that you and I have laid out over the last couple of weeks seem to be fixed in a way with it. How with Fletch going off in the first half. We thought for sure he was going to reach 100 yards. Did he? No. Why? Because the team stopped running. He got 4 rushes this entire game, or was it 5? Either way, he ended up getting 7. So he got 7 for 90. But the
I was gonna
thing
say,
is,
didn't
it's like, and most of that wasn't that. What was that in 3 of those were in overtime, if I'm not mistaken. They just forgot about him after that long run, and how much yardage the Stampeders have been giving up on the ground over the last couple of weeks.
I mean, I'm sure it doesn't compare to Montreal's run defense or lack thereof, but I mean, yeah, this game was a comedy
Yes,
of errors.
yes, Bart.
Bart, you know what? Thank you. You've put me at ease. They will not go 16-2, which, as I've stated, they cannot go 16-2 if they want to win the Grey Cup. It was either you either go 17-1 or 15-3. 16-2-1 is not going 16-2. So thank you, Bart. Thank you for being the helping us to touch grass just a little bit after this, because
That's
this was
something.
not good.
By the
Something would
by
be
the
a nice way
way,
of putting it.
yeah. I just happened to look this up, and I'm gonna use this as another positive stepping point. When the Owls won the Grey Cup in 1974, they had two ties.
Okay.
So they have won a Grey Cup before when they have tied.
Okay, so this is a bit of a precedent, and that same team was saluted, you know, a few weeks ago at Percival Molson Stadium. So I wonder if they just maybe they just brought some of that energy to the team when we didn't realize it.
Yeah,
Ay, ay, ay.
I do. Yeah, I'm trying to come up with something, dude, because
Don't sugarcoat it, Tim. Spill it. Say what you're feeling. Because I'm about to.
yeah, for me, yes, Brandon. Yes, agreed. I'm sorry. Agreed. And okay, you and I have already gone back and forth in this. I understand that they explained it. Besides being pissed off about the running game, which again, as we've said before, least amount of yards in the CFL when it comes to running game. Again, the Alouettes rush defense gets over 120 yards rushing. But to me, the most egregious thing, and I know you and I talked about this, and I don't know how people are going to think about this, because yes, they did explain it on TSN. I don't know how they explained it on RDS, because I know you and I are going back and forth about it. I did hear that one of the commentators was going absolutely berserk, though. In any form of football except for the CFL, pro football, a block is a block is a block. That was 7 points taken off the boards. I understand that rule has been in the CFL for approximately 2 years, where you can't hit the plant foot. That was a touchdown.
And nothing would have made
I
me
mean, he
happier to
came he
call
came
that
up
a touchdown.
right up the middle, blocked it. I mean, it couldn't have been any other play. He just came right up the middle, and Calgary gets away with it. It's a
Again, no.
joke.
It's you want to call it letter of the law. I mean, you just can't touch the kicker. Like that's
Can't You can't touch his plant foot. That's the thing that gets me the most. Okay, he blocked the kicking foot first.
right.
I want to see, because he was right on the ball as it was right before he was about to kick it. You and I were at camp day one when they were practicing this type of stuff, and coach was saying, you hit somebody, you're going to get called for a flag, right?
You're right.
This is the damn plant foot. It cost the Alouettes 7 points.
Yeah. And Sean Thomas Erlington not only he blocked the kick, was able to recover the ball and roll into the end zone untouched.
I know.
Hell of an effort for him. And again, that's where he's been this year, is on special teams, and that's where he's proven his worth. And an absolutely great play. And I wanted this so badly to be a touchdown for him,
Mhm.
but
It was such a great play. Such a great play.
it's just unfortunate that, I mean, letter of the law. I mean, that's the unfortunate part, because you're right. Otherwise, this should have. It sucks. I mean, to think though that that was just one of so many egregious things that happened throughout the course of this game is remarkable. But I will say this though: the Alouettes had no business winning that game. The fact that they were able to escape Calgary with a tie, they should be thanking their lucky stars because, quite frankly, that effort was worse than last week's effort. At least last week against BC, they fought. They ended up coming up short, and they ended up, letting other things just, decimate them. But this game was just absolutely terrible. Both teams were absolutely terrible, and it just felt like they were taking turns trying to give each other the game. And
Mm.
I mean, Jake Mayer almost looked competent. And I'm not saying Cody Fajardo was bad necessarily, but holy cow, he had absolutely no protection. The pocket kept collapsing around him over and over and over. Same thing as it was last week versus BC against a no-name O-line that was able to get the better of him. Calgary, at least,
Look what Toronto did versus BC this week.
Yeah, and don't give me this BS narrative about having to fly 3 time zones over and all this crap, because clearly the Argos and Chad Kelly proved that, yeah, it's not that hard. You can go across the country and beat these guys. I mean, both Nathan Rourke and Vernon Adams look mid at best. I mean, they just couldn't get anything going.
8 total completions for the game.
Something
I heard
stupid
something like that today. Something stupid like that.
Oh my gosh! I mean, it was brutal, and it's funny. Everybody and their mother was hoping and praying that BC would, try to humble Chad Kelly even further, but he was having none of that. And when you also factor in that Hamilton basically gift wrapped a victory over Ottawa, that would have definitely helped extend some of that lead that the Alouettes have over the Red Blacks. And the Alouettes just took that opportunity and pissed it away. I mean, against a Calgary team that, quite frankly, just not. Yeah. Where have we seen this before?
It's happened many a time for the Alouettes not to take advantage of something that's been given to them where they can extend the lead. The Alouettes could have been up by 5 points. Yes, they're up by 4 now. But especially with 2 games coming up versus the Red Blacks.
But could you imagine if, God forbid, Ottawa manages to run the table and equals the Alouettes record? I mean, these 2 games that are coming up next Saturday and on Thanksgiving, those have become massive, massive games now for the Alouettes to.
The next, if they want to, actually, because they're all versus the East.
True, very true. But at the same time, if you want to win the season series against both of these teams, they're must wins. But I mean, I'm just thinking Ottawa right now though is still breathing down their neck. Like the Alouettes had a great opportunity, gift wrapped and given to them tonight. All they had to do was beat Calgary, who, quite frankly, is a terrible football team. Aside from Reggie Begelton, this was not a good football team, but they played down to their opponent. And for the life of me, I cannot figure out why they did that. I'm sorry, that was just an absolutely terrible effort. Offense, defense. I won't say special teams because, aside for James Letcher with the early fumble, special teams, they were on point tonight. I mean, I can't believe Rene Paredes hits doinks one ball and misses the other. That's not Rene Paredes. I mean, that's like the that's like the Wish.com version of Rene Paredes, as far as I'm concerned. That is not who he is, especially at home, no less. I mean, the guy is money throughout the year, no matter where he plays, but tonight at home, no less.
Ryan Paredes.
Pretty much, call it what you will, but
Temu Rene Paredes. By the way, remember how I was saying that they couldn't take advantage of stuff? I don't know if anybody saw the game notes going into this game, Cliff. If the Owls had won this game, okay, it goes, if Toronto should lose to BC this week, which they didn't, and a win over Calgary would have put the Alouettes one win away from securing a home playoff game.
Again, that would have been moot because, yes, Toronto did win, but I mean, at the same time, though, like you could have built at least a 5-point cushion over Ottawa, and you didn't. I mean,
no.
And quite frankly, if you go into Ottawa with that kind of a piss poor effort, you're not going to beat the Red Blacks at home, who have, again, undefeated at home. I mean, wow.
Unbeaten. I'm going to correct you. Unbeaten.
Unbeaten. You're right. Cheerfully withdrawn.
There was another play tonight too, which I think was really big. And you and I have gone back and forth on this. is the Mustafa Johnson fumble recovery literally for the last play of the half, and he was within 5 yards of scoring a touchdown.
Yeah.
That could have been another
Uh,
play too.
yeah, if only there was just a little bit more time left on the clock and Mustafa could have stayed upright just a little bit longer, or if he got brought down sooner, with still a little bit of time on the clock and maybe giving Jose Maltos a chance to kick a field goal to tie at that point, you would have tied the game. Yes, absolutely. Jose Maltos definitely deserves the Budweiser player of the game because dude was money and just in a tough environment, no less. I mean, like his team gave him very little to work with, and for him to be able to at least get this team into overtime, give him a chance to win, ultimately didn't happen. But that certainly wasn't on him. So I mean, yeah, Jose Maltos has been money all year long. Aside from that one point after attempt missed in Saskatchewan, the guy has been near perfect.
Yep. His 53-yarder is second longest in Alouettes team history. That was tweeted out by Mr. Arsenault over on RDS. Two plays, in my opinion, Cliff, were really the plays of the game itself. One was the Walter Fletcher drive, and one was that one at the end of regulation to get the Alouettes that chance to kick it to tie the game, to go into
And how
overtime.
about Calgary just self imploding during that last drive because two major penalties backed them up considerably, and when they had no choice but to you know you know to give the ball back to Montreal, and it was wow. I mean,
I mean,
all all things
it's
considered,
funny.
Montreal is very fortunate that they were able to get into overtime, and I would have said they didn't deserve it. They truly didn't deserve to walk away with this win. Not that Calgary deserved to win, because quite frankly, they were mid as well. They did everything they could to give away this game, but Montreal was just like, no, 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 you guys have it. And then Calgary said, no, no, you go. How about we both take the game then? We just take our
They
share and go home.
Calgary dominated this game, Cliff. Dominated, and obviously it started off again. I don't know the first two drives of the game for the Alouettes. You know, first after a great run by Walter Fletcher, just a touch. Being away from being down by contact, ball's fumbled and gives ball to Calgary. Then on the next punt by Calgary, after Calgary scores a touchdown, oh wait a minute, a team taking advantage of turnovers and scoring points. What a surprise! And then on the punt by Calgary, James Letcher, we laugh at and we enjoy when he basically gets shot into the air because he is a small dude. The ball gets knocked out and Calgary recovers it. Right there, 10 points scored by Calgary off of turnovers. Now, yes, Calgary did not only score 3 more points the entire regulation, thanks to the thanks to the Alouettes defense. But Cliff, this is the stat really that I think that says it all for this game. Time of possession. Calgary had the ball, Cliff, for 37 minutes and 33 seconds. It was basically 2-1 at halftime.
And the fact that they couldn't put more points on the board tells me that Calgary did not deserve to win this game. I mean, I'm truly surprised that they didn't think to go with Matthew Schultz, but I guess Jake was doing just enough, like just the bare minimum to not get pulled.
Hell, Bonner probably would have done better.
Guess we'll never know because he was
I mean,
injured.
it's
Although,
not bad that Cody was bad. Cody's reverting back to Cody from last year, which I can't complain about. I can't complain about. But the problem is, as you stated earlier at the top of the show, is the O-line is just something just about the O-line. And they made the point today on TSN. They actually noted that something that very rare that occurs in the CFL, at least as of late, is that the entire O-line has been together the entire season. There hasn't been one change. The only change,
aside from
obviously, for the Alouettes has been the different wide receivers that have come in and out.
Yeah. And it was good to see both Keon Julian Grant and Tyler Snead get back in there and get some action, get some touches, which is nice. And you know, listen, it was we needed more though from this team. Offensively, they needed more. I mean, and Fajardo, he did the best he could. I mean, he did score a rushing touchdown, which is great,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
for the most part, played a solid game. But I mean, also too, he was given very little to work with. I mean, he was just getting no time and space at all.
Yeah. Blake agrees with you, by the way. Mustafa should have gone down earlier. I don't think there would have been enough time on the clock.
I mean, and again, I don't expect Mustafa to have the presence of mind. I'm sure his goal was he had nothing but green grass in front of him and just
Really
head for
did. He
the
was
end
close.
zone.
He just
Can't
needed
blame him
more.
for that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
you know,
again, Al's only held the ball for 22 minutes and 27 seconds throughout the entire game. That's it. Again, give up more than 100 yards of rushing. You know, they only gave up 236 yards to Jake Mayer. You know, Cody threw for 204. But again, what to me, it's just the constant things that the Alouettes are continuing to do over and over again in their game plans. You think that the way that Fletch was able to score on that one play that they were about to go basically half and half throughout the entire game, which they could have because they weren't that far down. But
mm-hmm.
no. Again, I think it was either 4 or 5 rushes through regulation.
Yeah.
And they can't get him to 100.
And never mind trying to get Joshua Nantwi or even Sean Thomas Erlington involved in the rushing game. Why bother? If you can't get Fletch going, then what the hell's the point of getting the other two? I mean, they've completely abandoned the run for all intents and purposes. And it's not because these guys are terrible. Far from it. I mean, even if William Stanback was still here, I kind of get the feeling he'd be getting the bums rush too, as far as rushing opportunities go, because this Alouettes team is just trying to air it out more often than not, or simply put, because the pocket keeps collapsing around the quarterback. You can't even create. You're not creating. If the pocket keeps collapsing, you're not creating holes for your running back to run through. So I mean, it's almost like the hell with it. Just why even bother? I mean, you just try to keep the quarterback upright more often than not, and they're even having a hard time doing that, and it's visibly frustrating because I think back to last year when this O line was giving up sacks aplenty. Like Cody Fajardo seemed to spend more time on his back than not, but I mean it's disheartening to see, and it's not because these are bad players, but my God, they are just not giving their quarterback any time and space. And I even saw a comment on Twitter earlier saying, well, why not mix it up and let Davis Alexander get in there? I'm like, Davis wouldn't have gotten that kind of protection either. It's not like they're going to magically become a brick wall around Davis Alexander. If they're not going to do it for Cody Fajardo, they're sure as hell not going to do it for Davis Alexander. It doesn't matter who is behind center. If this O line can't give the quarterback time and space to do what they need to do, I mean, they don't have a prayer. I mean, the fact that Cody was able to do what he did tonight, in spite of all that, is nothing short of miraculous. But it still wasn't enough to beat I'm sorry to say, a very poor Calgary team that honestly is going nowhere fast. I think this is as close as they're going to get to another victory this year, to tell you the truth.
Yeah. Um, Net offense, Alouettes had 292 yards. Calgary had 351. First downs, Cliff. Calgary had 26. Montreal had 16.
That's
That goes to, I think that goes to the point of how long that's the 37 minutes that Calgary had the ball, held the ball.
but the fact that Calgary couldn't put any points on the board in the second half is, or with the exception of one field goal. I mean, that that also says a lot. I mean, yes, it definitely speaks to how good this defense can be and has the opportunity to be, but at the same time, they didn't create any turnovers. They didn't really, you know, they couldn't create a whole lot of opportunities. They couldn't score either. I mean, and Arthur Hamlin, my God, I mean, he was getting ganged up on. I mean, of course, they were going to pick on the rookie replacing Marc Antoine Dequoy, but even then, like it just felt like the linebacking core really couldn't put a whole lot of pressure either on Jake Mayer. I mean, it almost feels like they were hoping that he was just going to shoot himself in the foot. And, based on the past couple of games, you figured he would have. And they were even talking about that on RDS. It's like, we're just waiting for Jake Mayer to have his other brain fart because he's done that before against Edmonton 2 times and so on. But my God, like
Props to the
this.
defense for keeping Calgary out of the end zone, how they did, especially on that 98-yard drive or whatever, 89-yard drive, and they fumbled it on the 2. If I'm not mistaken, the Stampeders had at least two drives of 12 plus plays.
Mhm. I mean, they had they had a pretty good time, a pretty easy time for the most part, moving the ball downfield, but they kept not coming away with points or very little. I mean, it's like this is not a good football team, and Montreal played just like them, and they're supposed to be the class of the CFL. They're supposed to be the best, one of, if not the best team. I mean, when the power rankings come out, I'll be stunned if Montreal is still number one because truthfully, they didn't deserve it. I mean, truthfully, a lot of the teams that played didn't deserve it. I mean, maybe Toronto, like they seem to have been the best team. I mean, Hamilton too might make a case for it, but I mean, I believe they were ninth or either eighth or ninth, and they're going to shoot all the way up to number one just based off of one game. But I tell you what, Tim, this does not feel like a number one power ranking team. Like this was just a
No,
piss poor effort, to tell you the truth.
it's 2 games in a row. 2 games in a row. I understand, sure, they had to travel. I get it, but it's still got technically a full week. I do understand that we did lose Dequoy. I mean, they knew he was out for the game. It was nice to see the return of KJG and of the need for Sneed.
Mhm.
Um, but they weren't taking advantage also of Cole Speaker. He only got his first catch in overtime.
That's incredible, and I was waiting for that too because I want to be able to talk about podcast karma. He was on the show this week, and usually when you come on the show, you play outstanding football. That's usually been the thing when it comes to guests here on the Alouettes flight deck. And he was a ghost throughout the entire game until, as you said, until overtime was the first time. Like, how do you ignore Cole Speaker? I mean, yes, it's great that Keon Julian Grant and Tyler Snead got the opportunities. Glad for that. Reggie White Jr. also got a couple of catches. Love that for him. But I mean, Cole Speaker is that guy. Like, and he probably could have made some ridiculous catch out of nowhere that would have put the Alouettes in scoring position. And yet, were they double teaming him, triple teaming him, and we just didn't see it? Like, or what was going on? Like, he was invisible throughout the
We also
game,
don't
and
know how
that's
many.
just not
It's funny. Reggie White was kind of invisible too.
for the most part. Well, but towards the end, they were fine. So that's the thing. Like this offense is just, and how many two and outs did
I mean,
the Alouettes have? I mean,
oh, I don't
uh,
know. Here,
I, I,
let me see
I
this now.
lost count.
I'll look it up here. Uh, the overtime game this week, Cliff, was the Alouettes' 19th overall in team history. That includes regular and postseason. At the time, they were 2-0 versus Calgary, and now they are 8-9-2 all time in overtime.
And it's funny. I was thinking the last time the Alouettes played an overtime game in Calgary, that was exciting. That was fun. That was wild.
Even though we
This was
lost,
anything.
even though
No,
we lost.
no, we won.
Is that one
2019.
that we won? I'm trying to think of the one where we didn't get the ball in the end zone in the last play that was supposed to be going to Gino. I could be
No, that
wrong.
was
Chat,
you.
correct us.
No, I'm
Fact check
telling you,
us
29.
right now. Fact check us right now.
I'm telling you right now. I'm telling you right now that Gino Lewis. Yes, you're thinking about the fact that he almost scored a touchdown, and as far as I was concerned, he did score the touchdown in overtime. But Montreal ended up winning the game because I forget who it was that didn't caught the ball, but only 1 foot was in bounds, or no, 1 foot was out of bounds, I should say, touching the white line. But again, we're going back 5 years here for this, but trust me when I say the last time the Alouettes played in Calgary played an overtime game in Calgary, they won.
Oh, duh. Capper, you're and people go ahead and clip this. Capper, you're a moron, of course. For the Alouettes to be 2-0 versus Calgary in overtime. I'm arguing for nothing.
Oh
So we're
boy.
gonna clip that, and that's gonna go viral. I mean,
You know what? You're just like the Alouettes O line. You just collapse around yourself, man. You don't give yourself a chance to do. You don't give yourself time and space to work. But
well,
it's just been that kind of night, ladies and
both
gentlemen.
I and Brandon are wrong.
You know what? I'm gonna go and I'm gonna find that game on. I'm gonna find the show that we did afterwards. I mean, it wasn't a lot. It wasn't a live show, but we did do a podcast after. That's when Gino came on the show for the first time, by the way.
Like, man, you got such a good memory. I just got these
Uh,
useless stats in my head. Um,
I'm telling you.
and it's true. Rambo looked a little shaky tonight. I will agree with Brandon on this one. I mean, Cole and Rambo, they were being overlooked. Rambo went a couple of times that I think Rambo that bad 15-yard penalty, which shouldn't have happened. I still question. I still want to know how the referees are able to gauge where a punt goes out of bounds. And I had forgotten that for punts it was the 15, not the 20 now.
Yeah,
I'm How do they gauge that type of stuff? Either way, that was a bad penalty there too, because it backed the Alouettes up. Sorry, it gave Calgary the ball even farther. Um, Nothing. They say it's like ties like kissing your sister. 100%.
it really is. I mean,
And
again,
I don't have a sister.
me neither. And you know what? Yes, they didn't lose. They're still unbeaten on the road, which is
There you go,
great.
Bart. Cliff is right. Cliff is right.
I'm saying.
As I said, the stats that I had kind of made sense because if the Owls were 2-0 versus Calgary again.
And I remember watching that game at home, losing my damn mind. I even called you afterwards to talk about it because it was like, whew, I had to go outside. I was sweating so much. It was
Right?
crazy.
Yeah,
Just,
yeah. Before the days of Flight Deck Live. Before the days of Flight Deck Live.
oh my God. Could you imagine if we had Flight Deck Alive back then? I think it would have been insane. It would have been absolutely
Oh,
insane just with that game.
we were going to the game tonight because we'd set it to go live at 10:15, and we saw what time we could have ended at. The game regulation ended. I think it like at 9:35, and I'm thinking, man, I love the CFL. I love the CFL, and anything goes. And obviously this game lasted more than 3 hours because it went into overtime. But again, it's just so frustrating. Over the Alouettes did give 3 sacks tonight. The Alouettes got one themselves. But again, going away from the run after that great run by Fletcher, I mean, and it's just the little things that I just don't understand. Fletcher, KJG, welcome back, obviously, led the team in receiving yards. Cliff at 71. He had 11 targets tonight, 8 receptions. After that, it was Charlton Rambo with 51 yards. Um,
It's
the sack
crazy.
went to Wes. The sack went to Wesley Sutton.
He was shot out of a cannon during that one. That I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was him that caused the fumble that Mustafa was able to pick up and almost ran back for a touchdown. Wesley Sutton was just he saw the bullseye on Jake Mayer's chest and he was aiming for it, not once but
Oh,
twice.
it was like STE on that blocked punt. I'm sticking by it. I don't give a crap. That should have again. A block is a block is a block. Don't give me this. Can't touch the plant. Your plant foot garbage. And they said
It,
on TSN tonight. I'm sure that's going to be talked about in the offseason. I don't know about that because they've been saying that for the last couple of years on the Alouettes onside punts.
yeah, exactly. And it's almost like a "if you learn the rules" kind of thing. But yeah, it's crazy. They did gain ground, Brandon. You're right, but 1 point, 1 whole point. I mean,
Yeah, it could have
it's
been
still
two.
a bitter pill to swallow, especially too, like, God forbid, again, it comes back to the point that these next two games against Ottawa, one at TD Place next Saturday and the Thanksgiving Day game in Montreal, those are absolutely massive. And you talk about whoever wins those games essentially is going to win the East. I mean, and
I
you're
think
talking
so,
about
yeah.
hosting a playoff game. I mean, not just hosting a playoff game now, but now it's going to come down to, are they going to host the Eastern Final or the Eastern Semifinal? Like, all of a sudden, like, depending on how these games against Ottawa go, I mean, that is going to be the tail of the tape right there. Because imagine if everything's equal, but again, the fact that they play 3 times, I mean, someone's going to have to win the season series, or unless there's yet another tie. But then it gets into a
Well, that
whole
may
other.
to be honest with you, which is one positive going into Ottawa next week, is that currently, with a win, the Owls win the season series.
This is true. At least the Alouettes did win that game, the home opener against Ottawa. So
Mhm. But there's still a
that, that
lot to be done. They you know what the Owls really need to do? They need to get a hold of the tape from today's game between the Red Blacks and the Tiger Cats. Something. I would have thought that
yeah,
the Alouettes would have looked at the tape from Calgary's beat down last week. Actually, the last 2 weeks. I just don't. Thorpe's doing a good job. He,
he really is, but
except the run defense is just garbage right now.
the run defense is garbage, and we're not seeing the ball hawks in the secondary like we have. I mean, there's it almost feels like they're giving the opposing receivers the time to catch the ball instead of trying to go for that home run shot. And again, I say that though, and I'm the first person to give Marc Antoine Dequoy shit for you know going so fast that he just blows past the receiver, and the receiver ends up catching the ball and gets first down, if not a touchdown. It's kind of a double edged sword. I'm not going to lie. I mean, it's you want to take that risk, but at the same time, you don't want to give up any massive play either. So it's tough. I mean, this secondary has been good, but not great this year, and the linebacking core has been also good, but not great this year. I mean, Darnell Sankey's doing a great job. Tyrese Beverett doing a very, very, very solid job this year, but just missing that one element, just one little extra bit to make themselves elite. And it just feels like they're close, but the brass ring is just a little bit out of reach for those guys. And then this defensive line, I mean, we got to get Luwal Ugalak back like yesterday. We got to get Sean Lemon back, but that's not going to happen.
That's a whole other story in itself. But I
I,
think was this Sean's ninth game?
Something like that. But I mean,
Which
Isaac
if it,
Ademi
if it
Berglund
gets
has
to
been.
10, if it gets to 10, it's even. I'm sorry, but that's another topic for another podcast.
Yeah, I will say
Not
Isaac
tonight.
Berglund has been absolutely outstanding, and
Oh
even
yeah,
tonight against his former team, played an exceptional game. But aside from him and Mustafa Johnson, with the occasional punishing, tackle or sack, I mean, this defensive line has just been. I'm starting to understand now why Danny Machocha is constantly tinkering with it, because even when you think you've got it right, something happens and it's almost like back to square one, and it's disheartening to say the least. Because I fully expect this defensive line to be, you know, causing, striking fear in the hearts of the opposing quarterbacks, and I don't feel like they've done that over the past few games. I don't feel like the quarterback is panicking, like, oh crap, I got to go up against these guys. I don't like that. I don't get that sense from them. I don't get the sense that they're as demolishing and rushing as much as they could be. And I just wish I knew why it wasn't like that. I mean, they've been good. I mean, this defense by and large is still a very good defense, but they're really starting. It almost feels like they're running on fumes a little bit, and that's very concerning, especially at this time of year. Like, this is not the time to start taking your foot off the gas, whether you're on offense, defense, or special teams. Like, this is definitely crunch time right now. Like, the games are starting to count more and more because there's less and less of them. You can't just say on to the next one so easily. Again, you're going to be playing Ottawa twice. You're going to have to go to BC and probably eat an L there, no doubt. Although, mind you, if the Alouettes go and play the BC Lions that played last night, they
hmm.
might actually have a chance of winning in BC. But again, we know how this story usually ends for the Alouettes when it comes to going out to play at BC Place. So again, that's not something you can hang your head on. Then you got Winnipeg and you've got Toronto. also teams that all of a sudden remembered how to win and remembered that they could be dangerous as well. I mean, this is like you talk about strength of schedule for the Montreal Alouettes, and right now it's really not looking good. I mean, yes, they are a very capable team, and they should be able to beat these teams, but at the same time, they've got just as much chance now of losing to them because they're not quite the same as they were earlier this year. I mean, and you can say that for both the Alouettes and their opponents. Like a lot has changed, some good, some bad, but it's like there's no foregone conclusion. There's no gimmies right now. I think this Alouettes team really does have to look inside themselves and realize just how big these games coming up, especially the two games against Ottawa. Like they, as far as I'm concerned, they're going to make or break the Eastern Division right now.
No, I agree. Darnell Sankey, by the way, had another double-digit game with tackles. Here's a big stat, by the way, for the game, Cliff. Second down conversion for the Alouettes for the entire game. Okay, so they were 31%. Okay. They were 5 of 16. 5 of 16 on second down.
I mean, yeah,
I
that's not going to cut
mean,
it.
again, I want to go back. I think the Alouettes have given up close to 500 yards over the last 3 games when it comes to rushing. I think. My math may be a little off, but I think, the Stanbeck last week, it was close to 250. Maybe off. Last week it would have been 250. Okay, so this is again, Calgary last week gave up 200 plus yards of rushing.
Yeah,
I just don't get it.
and Dedrick Mills, I mean, he looked okay.
122 yards.
There you go. I mean, when you got someone that's able to run like that, like Jake Mayer doesn't have to be so exceptional. Like he can just hand the rock off to this guy, and yeah. Oh boy, do we miss Reggie Stubblefield. Oh my.
We
I
missed
mean, yeah,
quite a few. Obviously losing Stubby at the beginning of the year, and obviously now finding out that Tyson Philpott is gone. Considering that the play that he went out on at home, it seemed to be so, you know, it's not necessarily a
inconsequential.
blink. It's a kind of a blink and you miss it type of thing, but we didn't think it was going to be so major.
Yeah,
They were saying tonight on TSN, most likely Austin Mack may be back within the next 1 or 2 games. I don't know where they got that from, but I'll leave it at that, which
great.
would
Can he
be
play O
nice.
line? Because I mean,
But
as
I've
awesome as
also
it be the back in the field, I mean, if Cody doesn't have a chance to throw the ball to him, then because the O line just can't seem to stop anything, then it's almost going to cause more harm than good. I mean,
and have you noticed how few shots the Alouettes are taking deep now?
with Cody back in the lineup, you're going to see it a little bit more. I mean, that bomb he threw to Charleston and Rambo out of the end zone was absolutely phenomenal. But
Right.
you're seeing it so it's so
That was
infrequent
on
now.
that was on Cody, actually, because I think he mistimed his throw, but it was a great throw.
I'm talking. I'm talking about when the Alouettes started after the turnover on the goal line stand against Calgary.
Oh, I'm talking about the one in the end of the fourth,
Oh,
in
okay.
overtime. In overtime.
Okay. No, no, we're not on the same page. That's
No,
all
we're not,
right.
but still, it's okay.
But yes, it would be nice for you know Cody to be consistent. Keep calling him consistently consistent Cody. We'd like him to be consistently consistent when it comes to the big play as well. I mean, like just take the
Yeah,
shot. And
for him to have so many his ratio. It's funny. We have a consistently consistent ratio ratio where he only has like up to maybe 7 incompletions, and as of late, that has that hasn't been the case.
yeah,
But the thing is, you don't have anything to back it up. I think last year it was again. There's way too many things that the Alouettes have stopped using, in my opinion. Again, we should not be talking about the rushing game. So, 13 games into the season. But again, as I pointed out on the podcast, last in the CFL in rushing yards. Last.
and again, it's not because we
So,
have terrible running backs. I mean, I will argue that Walter Fletcher, and he showed it tonight. You give him the opportunity, you give him the rock, he can make things happen. Not just catching the ball, but running as well. But he's just not getting the opportunities. And forget Joshua Nantwi and Sean Thomas Erlington; they're not even getting a sniff of the ball, barely even.
yeah,
And
120, 115 yards tonight total for the Alouettes.
against a team that, as you said last week, gave up well over 200 yards rushing. Like that should have been the your first sign to just pound the ball, keep it on the ground and pound. That should have been, that would have definitely taken a lot of pressure off of Cody to try and make the home run shot. Would have definitely helped them respect the run. Maybe get this O line a chance to properly set themselves so they can create the holes needed for guys like Fletcher and such. It just this was a squandered opportunity as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, for sure. We appreciate you, Brandon, for joining in the show, man. We really do. And we appreciate all you who have joined in, obviously, and chimed
Yeah,
in, whether you chime in or not on on the on the giving a giving your take on the game itself.
yeah,
We
because
can
this
say
is
this.
it's
We can say this, and this is the kind of surprise I was going to leave it to the podcast, but I'll mention it now, and then we'll mention it again for the second annual meetup, Flightdeck meetup on Thanksgiving Monday. Um, yes, we still want you. You can still buy some stuff. I don't think you'll get it in time. You might for over at flightdeckgear.ca, but we will be having some giveaways.
ooh,
Specifically some cartoon bird giveaways. So
uh-huh.
we'll
Well,
leave
there
it
you
at that.
go. I mean, and I know Thanksgiving is normally associated with turkey, and I wouldn't call these guys turkeys, and I wouldn't call our cartoon bird logo a turkey either. But I mean, bird is the word, right? So I mean, folks, if you haven't
How
already,
dare
make
you
sure you.
call our sparrow a turkey? How dare you?
I would never. I would never. I just don't want people to just associate birds with turkeys and things like that. I mean, at least sparrows can fly, larks can fly, turkeys can't fly, but they are delicious.
Ah, I love this. Brad, nice chime in, my friend. Nice chime in. CFL announced that they would overturn for calls in the field if issue can be seen in slow-mo. Contacting the kicker and catch near sideline were both rules in favor of the Owls on field, yet command center overturned both plays.
We're not going to call sour grapes. We're not going to be those types
No,
of
but
people
he
that
does
talk
bring up a
about
good point. He does bring up a good point.
absolutely. And it's just one of the, like I even said during the game, like during the live posting on X, is that feels like the referees want to win this game more than the Alouettes and the Stampeders do. Like it just felt like all three teams were playing against each other. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
because a lot of things went Montreal's way, a lot of things went Calgary's way, but you couldn't say that the refs were for or against either team. To tell you the truth, I think it was just poorly officiated and poorly played by both teams. Like this game, you almost want a do over. It's like, okay, we can be better than that. Let's just forget this ever happened and let's start over again tomorrow, kind of thing.
Penalties, speaking of, 8 for 91 for Montreal, 10 for 110 for Calgary.
See,
And I
and
will go
that's
back to I'm gonna say it again, and I'm probably will say it again this week on the pod on Wednesday. A block kick is a block kick is a block kick in any pro football except for the CFL. Plant
I'm just
foot
curious
my
to see
butt. Plant foot my butt. Now,
the post game
to
speech by Jason Moss because I'm pretty sure.
I am so hoping that the Alouettes do post that. They did a great job at posting it last week. I'm hoping they do. Obviously, we're tuning into their post game show, which what we'll do later on to see what was said. But to Brad's point too, though, um, you know, the kick man. Uh, I think the reason why the command center looked at it was because it was a turnover, which
Mhm,
they would have done anyways.
right,
But for that, there really wasn't anything to confirm. And I understand they're trying to change things around, but in a bang bang play like that, where ST just comes right through and gets the kick almost before he kicked it.
almost.
And how much did he really touch the plant foot? I want to go back and watch the play again. Really, how much did he touch the plant foot?
I mean, the one angle they kept showing over and over again. That's why I was led to the conclusion of he shouldn't have touched his leg. but you're right. It would be interesting to go back and if you can find another angle of it, just to see how much he touched the plant foot. That could potentially have changed the whole. But again, I mean,
Again,
no sense crying over
again.
spilled milk. It's not going to change
No, but
anything.
as you said earlier, I hate having that they took the TD away from STE, especially after such a great play, such a great play.
He did it all too. Like I said, he
Mhm.
got the block, scoop, and scored. I mean that was incredible, absolutely incredible. It just sucks that essentially it was all for naught. But
Yeah,
and sadly, that kind of was the tone of this game. When you think about it, it's just a lot of squandered opportunities for any number of reasons. But that's really how this comes across. And I'm saying this for both teams. I think Calgary could have easily won this game. Montreal could have, maybe should have won this game. I mean, that's the thing, though. I can't say one team was truly better than the other. I think it was a race to the bottom for both these squads, to tell you the truth. Both teams, quite frankly, turned in a pedantic, sad effort. The fact that they get to have a tie, they should be thanking their lucky stars.
are you using dictionary.com for that word, pedantic?
It's a word. It's a real word.
I
Google
believe you.
it. Well, I'm trying not to use curse words here and talk about,
I know.
try not to be just too disparaging, but I gotta call it like I see it, and that's really what it was.
No, I know. I know.
But still undefeated, unbeaten on the road. So I guess if you're trying to look for the silver lining, ladies and gentlemen, I guess that's the one thing you'd say. The Alouettes are still undefeated on the road.
No, you had it right the first time. Unbeaten.
Unbeaten, unbeaten.
I know.
They
Yeah,
didn't lose.
there you go. But the thing, again, as we talked about at the top of the show, does have a great matchup next week. Both teams are undefeated, unbeaten. See, even I'm getting to do it. Uh,
My
Ottawa
bad.
is unbeaten at home. Montreal is unbeaten on the road, so it should make it for a great matchup next week. And it's prime. I don't know, not saying prime time, but it's national television next week. It'll be
That's right.
the Owls at Red Blacks on the CFL on CTV.
Absolutely. And quite a few members of Alouettes Nation are going to be in Ottawa for the game, thanks to the fan bus. Apparently, last I heard, they sold 5 buses worth.
Oh, was it
Oh, four.
4? Last time I heard was 4, so 5. That's crazy.
Well,
That's 250 people? If they held more, I can't remember. I think if they hold 50 to 60, I think, for these coaches.
I,
Coach,
I,
so
I think so. And if they're going to even add more, if they could, I mean, see, that's the thing. It's amazing that Alouettes Nation is going to show up and show out for their team. To go on the road and show the love for this team. I mean, I hope that's the boost they need. I hope that's going to give them the kick in the ass that they need to be better than what they were the past couple of weeks.
I always find
I
that I
mean, if
bring
you,
this stuff up. It always changes. I don't think most people remember, but the Alouettes have this is their longest streak in team history for this type of thing. They've never done, I don't think, between any other team that they've played in their history, but the Alouettes have won 9 straight games in Ottawa.
that bodes
9
well.
straight. Yeah.
Again, somebody's going to give next week, ladies and gentlemen. Either the Ottawa Red Blacks are going to lose their first home game of 2024, or the Montreal Alouettes are going to lose their first road game of 2024.
Yep.
So make sure, if you're not going to the game, make sure you tune in on CFL on CTV. You and I are going to be there, Tim. It's going to be absolutely electric. I have no doubt in my mind. Alouettes Nation is going to show up, be a part of something special. Hopefully, it's going to be fun. And I just sincerely hope that even though we show up and the fans show up, I just hope the Alouettes show up. It would be so great because
Yeah.
tonight wasn't it. Tonight really wasn't it. It's going to leave a bitter taste in my mouth. Yes, they didn't lose, but they didn't win. It really is like kissing your sister. Ties
Uh,
absolutely suck.
don't forget, we have the show on Wednesday. Don't forget for anybody who joined tonight, if you're watching specifically on YouTube, make sure you do give a like. Make sure you hit the bell button to make sure to, and so you know that when we do go live next, or when another episode does become available. We obviously appreciate everybody for joining us. That's why we do the post game show. We do it for you, the fans, and just to get a reaction and stuff like that. And don't forget, obviously, if you miss it this week, don't forget to head over to either YouTube or to alouettesflightdeck.ca and listen or watch to this past week's episode where we had Cole Speaker on. Great episode, a great interview with him. So if you happened to miss that, head over to all the places where it is currently available. And again, Thanksgiving Monday, our second annual meetup. So stay tuned for more information as that does become available. So so Alouettes tie in Calgary. It's the first tie since 1998. Alouettes moved to 10-2 and moved to they're now currently a 10-2-1 on the season, still leading the CFL East. Cliff, I appreciate you, buddy, and we will see everybody obviously on the pod on Wednesday.
Absolutely. And folks, make sure to, if you're watching this on YouTube, leave a like, leave a comment. Keep showing us the love. We definitely appreciate it. And yeah, if you haven't checked out the interview with Cole Speaker, make sure you do so. You can find that on YouTube, anywhere you find the podcast, or just alouettesflightdeck.ca. So make sure you do that. Make sure you're following. Make sure you subscribe to us. We want you to be a part of the flight crew, because this is why we do this. This is why we give up our Saturday night, not just to watch a terrible football game and then come talk about it for nearly an hour. We do this for you, the fans, the listeners, the viewers. We appreciate each and every one of you for tuning in, showing us the love. And you know what? Let's just keep this going. I mean,
By the way, move
as
to your
tough as
right
this is,
before we leave. Move to your right a little bit. I'm going to show what's behind you.
oh, you know what? Yes, let me do this.
Real quickly before we go.
Check that out.
That's pretty sweet. That's pretty sweet.
Yeah, that was courtesy of our good friend Claude from the Liga Kiwi tailgate. Who, again, if you come to the fan meetup, you're going to meet Claude, and you will be well received. You will be well loved by Claude and the gang. This was a Christmas gift, actually, and
Oh, nice.
absolutely beautiful. I mean, words cannot describe just how awesome this is.
No,
So,
that's nice. That is
and,
fantastic. First time
and
I've seen it. So that's pretty cool.
it's a very limited edition. So, again, thank you to Claude for a wonderful gift like that. And yeah, I mean, if you want to meet the man who inspired that, you got to come to the tailgate on Thanksgiving Monday and be part of the fan meetup. Simple as that.
Exactly. So appreciate everybody who's joined us for Flight Deck Live this week. Obviously, stay tuned for the podcast on Wednesday and for our next episode also Flight Deck Live, live from TD Place in Ottawa. But stay tuned for that. So again, we appreciate everybody who's joined us for the broadcast this week. So for everybody here at Flight Deck Live, for Cliffy D, I'm Tim Capper. We'll talk to you soon.